Welcome to Dairy Delivery by the Dairy Star. On today's episode, Cody Clements talks about taking over the family farm, something he worked towards but was expedited after his father's cancer diagnosis. Next, we speak to Randy and Mary Adamson about their herd of dairy goats breeding for production and type. Next, we hear from Troy Wallen, a farmer in Washington State, and how his farm operates in the shadow of Mount Rainier. Finally, we ring in the new year with Mike Lubeck of Monroe, Wisconsin, to learn the history of Limburger cheese. On New Year's Eve, the city had one of the most unique celebrations in the country, honoring their Swiss heritage with a block of Limburger. You're listening to Dairy Delivery, all dairy, all the time. Today's episode is sponsored by DRMS.
This episode is brought to you by DRMS. DRMS is excited to launch the Fresh Cow Index, a new metric within the Herd HQ platform. FCI is featured in the Fresh Focus Transition Cow reports inside Dairy Depot and will be available in DART in the future. FCI combines 25 individual cow variables from DHI test day data and CDCB genetic evaluations into a single, easy-to-understand score for evaluating transition cow performance. A score of 100 indicates expected performance. Cows above 100 are outperforming predictions, while those below 100 are more likely to underperform and face early culling risk. Producers and consultants can use FCI to evaluate month-over-month changes in feeding and management, understand herd-level transition success, and drill down into Cow Compass for detailed cow-level insights. Herd HQ. See what's happening in your herd. Learn more at drms.org/herd-HQ/what-is-herd-HQ.
I'm Michelle Stangler.
And I'm Dan Walker, and we're your reporters of the Dairy Star, bringing you the latest in the dairy industry, including hearing from farmers from across the Midwest and beyond. Well, Michelle, your alma mater, UW River Falls, is the 2025 D3 National Champs in football. How's it feel?
Yeah, it's so cool. I mean, we've had a really great women's hockey team that has also won a national championship. And it's cool because it's such a big agriculture college that they have there. So it was fun. I watched the game in a nice warm blanket with cheese. The first time, if you're unaware, listeners, that they've ever won a football championship, and to see some of that coverage, that national media coverage, has been so special. If you haven't seen it, they haven't won a playoff game in a few years, and they've never won a championship. So it's just a fun, special game to watch. What about you, Dan?
I like to consider myself an honorary Falcon. I went to UWL. I'm an Eagle at heart, but my dad went to River Falls. Both my brothers went to River Falls. Both my sisters-in-laws went to River Falls. So I got a lot of ties up there, getting to do a couple stories and everything up there was really cool. And then, yeah, the rise they've had this year was just incredible. I mean, Coach Matt Walker, when he started, I think he's been there for like 15 years. He was 3-15, or like he was 3-10, or like went 0-10 one year, and then being able to ride it out and now win a national title is their story is something that's really awesome. And obviously a school we get to work with a lot, and one you went to, like, that's awesome.
I think what's also really unique is River Falls is relatively small, and in any Wisconsin-like community, a lot of bars. And I was just watching their press conference when they won the national championship, and Matt Walker, the coach, was like, "We'd like to thank the bars who are probably just it's a big camaraderie," and mentioned some of those bars. And so just seeing that, and just the joyfulness of a small community, the underdog, they kept saying during the broadcast, was just so cool and special. Certainly, we digress. We love all things football. I know that you have a strong athletic background, but talking about 2026, got a New Year's resolution, Dan?
Yeah, New Year's resolution is something that is always a little tricky. There was a while there that I thought it was too cool for New Year's resolutions. Like, calendar doesn't need to tell me when I need to turn over a new leaf or do anything new. But like last couple of years, I thought taking a little bit more seriously and thought about it a little more. And this year, I want to be a little bit more intentional with getting together with friends. Like, I was gone for 10 years, moving back this last year. We'd get together every now and then, but not as often as we should have or could have. So I think this next year I want to be a little bit more intentional, being able to get together with our friends and spend more time with them.
Yeah, I like to think of the philosophy, are we working to live or living to work? And so cool that you're trying to think about the intentional time that maybe after 5 time, not saying we have a typical schedule as reporters, but certainly that's really cool. I think for me, as I think about this new year, I think of it as a word, and my word of the year is stories. In the past few years, I've just tried to think about just different seasons of my life. What do I want to do for work? And really, I've enjoyed my time here with Dairy Star. And so want to get back and more involved in telling stories and reporting on them, and then sharing stories back to my family too of, oh, I saw this or I did this. And so just another thing to think about the new year. But if you do a bingo card, that's also something I'd love to do that I'm working on right now. And so if you ever have things on your bingo card that you want to maybe talk about, either as a story idea or just as a human being, feel free to reach out to us. But yeah, bingo card. If you're unfamiliar, you write out some goals for the year, and especially in the past year, people say this isn't on my bingo card or this is on my bingo card. Like the humor behind it. People actually do a bingo card. So there you go, Dan. That's something you can do if you haven't. Is a bingo card.
Right, and say write some things down, get a little bit more intentional and focused on what we're trying to do. That's not a bad idea. Yeah, if there's any listeners who have any other New Year's resolutions, let us know. We'd like to talk about them, and maybe have some accountability buddies and check up throughout the year and see if people are actually following through with their resolutions. So,
well, let's get into today's episode.
Our first story today takes us to Coon Valley, Wisconsin. Cody Clements has worked on his family farm for as long as he could remember, and always wanted to put his own name up on the farm sign. He and his father had plans to transition the farm to Cody when it was time, but it was a cancer diagnosis that accelerated the transition process. Let's hear from Cody as him and I discuss his transition and Clements Custom Ag LLC.
We're trying to change it over to a double eight, try to streamline it, speed up the milking process. We put in a alley scraper this year to help save time on the scraping process so that, like in the morning, we want to change the parlor to a double so that we can get through milking quicker. So one, she can get the kids up and get them on the bus before school so I can get feed mixing and stuff done so that if we got custom work to do, we can get onto the field sooner or quicker. And just trying to save a little time. And with our kids getting a little older, sooner or later they're going to be milking with us, so I don't think we'll have a problem as far as 5 boys that we'll be able to keep somebody with one of us, or even when they get old enough where they'll be able to milk together with each other, and just keep 2 people in the parlor all the time.
But say part of that was, it was always in the plans for you to kind of come back. You obviously were working towards the LLC, but your dad was diagnosed with cancer last year. What was your reaction to him being diagnosed, and how did that speed up your process you guys had for you taking over?
Yeah, so for beginning of January, my dad, he got diagnosed with cancer, and I was devastated, I had my dad basically seen him every day, my whole life up until he moved off the farm last July there. They moved to town, and we moved on the farmhouse, and it was in the works to buying the operation, but just was trying to figure out which was the best way to go about it. But with his diagnosis, then we basically tried to get it pushed through because we didn't know what the timeline would be as far as how much life he'd have. And so once we figured out a plan, we basically went with it, and in August this year we finally got it purchased. So
and obviously your dad's been working through, he's got a little bit of radiation left, but
yeah,
that's from there. But how's he feeling?
Said he feels good and just gets cold real easily and lost a lot of his muscle, but he's still in good spirits, and if he's not busy with running to doctor appointments, he still likes to get up to the farm here and see the grandkids and see what's going on and find out the latest gossip for the last couple of days.
Yeah, for sure. So the sign out front says Clements Custom Ag. Can you talk a little bit about how you run your own custom business along with milking on the farm?
Yeah, so we run Clements Custom Ag. It's basically a 2-part business where one's the dairy side where we milk cows, and the other side is custom that we do local custom work for other local farms. And we plant corn in the spring, we bale and chop in the summertime, and then in the fall we chop corn silage and do just a little bit of corn combining, and then we bale for everybody too from basically April to November, as far as bedding and hay, and we've had a pretty good list of customers that we've had over years, and they've been pretty loyal to us. So, been pretty fortunate to build that business up to where the dairy can, you need some of that equipment to work with the dairy for making your own feed, but then you can use that to go do other work for other neighbors that you could help pay for it, and just kind of basically it's been something that's been working for us the last few years, So.
For sure. And your wife has helped out with that quite a bit, right? Because you like to handle the field work, but she likes to handle
Yeah, so my wife, she's blessing, she can do the chores most of the time at night by herself, and we try to get everything done in the morning side. So basically it's just chase cows in at night and milk them and feed calves. And our kids are getting a little bigger, so they're starting to help out with feeding calves and stuff, but she's definitely the reason why we could still run around and do all the custom work, because if without her we wouldn't be able to do that, because we'd have to be here, doing milking cows. So.
Yeah, having that full equal partnership and her help you, it helps obviously bring everything together. It's kind
of a good relationship, because it makes it work,
Yeah, and she enjoys it too.
Yeah, it ain't something where you're pushing someone into it. It's someone that enjoys it, and we try not to hire too much far as milking help unless we're leaving to go on a trip somewhere, and or just or a wedding or something. But for most part, we try to do everything, most of it ourselves, and we hire a little bit of guys that come in and help us, like haul feed and stuff when we're chopping or stuff. But mostly, if we can do it ourselves, we try to handle it ourselves. So.
For sure. So your name's always been on the sign here because you are a third generation. Not always, but I mean, since you were a young buck.
Since you built the LLC or whatever. So
what's it mean to you to have Clements Custom Ag, your name, your wife's name, and family up there? Was there a different sense of pride in?
Yeah, definitely a sense of pride, because you seen that sign when you pulled in the yard every time your whole life, and now to say that we got our family on there, we're doing the work, we're making it go, and so to have that sign at the end of this driveway where there's a lot of tourists that go down through and they see your name on it, it can sometimes, it's a sense of pride, I guess, so.
You ever stop in the driveway and just take a minute and look at it and think about it?
No, I'm usually too big a hurry to do that, but no, it's definitely a nice ring to buying the farm and buying out the LLC. And
for sure. And then you got how many kids?
We got 5 kids. So my wife had a kid, a previous marriage, and then we had 4 together, and they were all boys. So.
Okay. So what's it mean to you to be able to raise your family on the farm where you grew up, doing some of the principles you learned growing up, they can learn in the same spot you did? What's that mean to you?
Yeah, I think it always meant a lot to have my kids grow up like I did, So as far as being excited when it's time to make hay or time to chop corn salads, or and our kids must be excited for it, because when we're sitting out at night, they're chit-chatting about chopping or who's helping us, and they're playing on the floor with a toy, and so-and-so's merging, and so-and-so's chopping, and so-and-so's hauling, and it makes me realize that they're interested, and you gotta keep them interested, and hope that build up an operation that hopefully one day they can take over and won't have to possibly work as hard as we got to try to keep it going. But biggest thing is, if we can get them interested and keep it going, it'd be a 4th generation, it'd be a pretty damn good feeling at the end of the road.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by DRMS. DRMS is excited to launch the Fresh Cow Index, or FCI, a new metric within the Herd HQ platform. Featured in Fresh Focus reports inside Dairy Depot, FCI combines 25 cow-level variables from DHI test day data and CDCB genetic evaluations into one score to evaluate transition cow performance. A score of 100 means cows performed as expected, while lower scores can signal added risk early in lactation. Herd HQ. See what's happening in your herd. Learn more at drms.org/herdhq/what-is-herdhq.
Read about the ownership transition for Clements Custom Ag LLC under the headline Ready or Not on dairystar.com. Next, we head to Milton, Wisconsin, where Stacy Smart talked with Randy and Mary Adamson. Randy and Mary owned Marin Dairy Goats, where they focus on production and type. Randy, who has a background in dairy cows, uses that prior experience to continue to build up his herd of goats.
Randy and Mary, can you tell me how you guys got started in the dairy goat industry?
I grew up on a cow dairy very close to where we are currently on my dad's farm, and milked with my dad until after we were married in my early 20s, and then worked construction for 15 or almost 20 years, building houses and stuff. Anyway, and then in 94, our oldest daughter wanted to show an animal at the county fair. And so we ended up buying 2 dairy goats and did a few little shows and stuff. And then in 2009, we had an opportunity to buy an existing herd of dairy goats from a neighbor just a half-mile down the road. And the commercial herd, we bought 150 milkers. And so we bought that herd and rented his barn for 2 years. And then in 2011, we did some remodeling here and built a parlor and a milk house and moved the goats home to where we live now.
Okay, and you guys have both a show herd and a commercial herd, right? And I was wondering if you could just tell me about some of your successes with each.
With the commercial herd, I would say, every year I raise the bar on production and where they have to be, and I think we have a fairly productive herd. For me, one of the successes is that I sell quite a few breeding bucks to commercial herd because of the high production, and having those repeat customers come back, call year after year for a breeding buck again, they must like what they got the first time. On the show side, we went from county fairs to, I don't know how many, we do 6 or 8 club shows all around the Midwest. We do Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois. We travel down to Indiana. We've been 25 years at the Wisconsin State Fair, 20 years at the Minnesota State Fair. We've probably been to 6 or 8 national shows. Also on the show side, in 2013, we had 3 animals in the champion lineup. Ended up winning the Reserve National Champion Alpine. But even better is a buck of ours called Rochester. He's a homebred buck. And he's been 3 times National Premier Sire Alpine, and that's just really been an honor.
That sounds very exciting. And so, as someone who regularly DHI tests your herd, why do you believe this is an important practice for those who milk goats?
Yeah, there aren't as many commercial herds that do DHI, and I really don't understand. If you look at the cow dairies, they're either on DHI or they have the computers in the parlor that tells production. For me, I think it's such an important management tool to know what these does are doing. A lot of producers will just take an average out of the tank. I'm shipping this much milk and I've divided by 150 goats. That's how much my goats are milking. But I don't care how good or bad of a herd you have. There's that 10% at the bottom that you're milking them for nothing and probably maybe even losing money on it. It tells me who to call. It tells me high cell counts, good does, who to keep kids out of. There's just a lot of advantages to it.
Right, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And so can you tell me about your practice of doing extended lactations or milking through and how that has benefited your operation?
I've been doing that extended lactations about 8 years. I had an old veterinarian that said I should try it. I did some reading. It's real popular in Europe. And so that first year I took 20 goats and, for extended lactation in the fall, you just don't breed them. You just milk them through. And so there again with the DHI, I go by the DHI feed in October. I'll look at that. And if you're still, producing 8 pounds is a number for me, then she goes on the do not breed list, and I just let her continue to milk through the winter and continue to go. We've had several does that'll milk 1,000, 1,200 days straight, and we've had them up to 1,500, 1,600 days milking just on one lactation. It gives you that winter milk, which we're always struggling to get, but also it saves you, if you think about it, just milking through. It saves you that many more kids you don't have to raise, health reasons. Goats, kidding season is a real dangerous time for goats, and that seems like that's when you'll have have goats die or get ketosis or whatever. So it's real simple. You just make the milk and keep going.
This episode is brought to you by DRMS. DRMS is excited to launch the Fresh Cow Index, or FCI, a new metric within the Herd HQ platform. Featured in fresh focus reports inside Dairy Depot, FCI combines 25 cow-level variables from DHI test day data and CDCB genetic evaluations into one score to evaluate transition cow performance. A score of 100 means cows performed as expected, while lower scores can signal added risk early in lactation. Herd HQ. See what's happening in your herd. Learn more at drms.org/herd-HQ/what-is-herd-HQ. Read more about Marin dairy goats under the headline Breeding for Milk, Type on dairystar.com. Next, we head across the country as Amy Kylo spoke with Troy Wallen. Troy operates a dairy farm in Enumclaw, Washington, where he is transitioning from conventional to organic, and some other obstacles that he faces farming in the shadows of Mount Rainier.
I am talking to a Washington dairy farmer who lives just outside of the Seattle area. Troy, tell me a little bit about you and your family, all your names, and a bit about where your farm's located.
I'm Troy Wallen. My wife is Catherine, who does the books. I have two sons. Cario is my oldest, who's 33, and my son Kellen, who's going to be 31 here shortly. And I have a daughter too that does photography. And I'm in Enumclaw, Washington, right under beautiful Mount Rainier, and it's raining a lot this winter.
They aptly named. I love that. So tell me a little bit, you guys, how many cows you guys milk, and you guys are transitioning organic. Tell me just a little bit about that transition and what's happening on you guys' farm right now.
Well, we've been transitioning for about a year, and not because I want to, because I have to financially, because of what my co-op's been taken out of our milk check for the last 4.5 years, 5 years. And it's a challenge with paperwork. There's a lot more paperwork involved in organic than conventional farming, but that's probably the biggest challenge, is a lot of more paperwork.
Gotcha. And you said that you guys are currently you have a conventional milking herd you're kind of looking to sell and then kind of come back with your heifers organic. When are you hoping that might be that startup for these organic transitioned heifers?
I am hoping for either April or first part of May, just trying to get my herd sold, but the cows will all be gone here before February 15th is my goal.
So tell me a little bit, you guys are in Washington. It's a little bit mild, probably wet and chilly, but a little bit milder climate than here in the Midwest that some of our readers are familiar with. Tell me a little bit about, your kind of like growing season and such, and give me a sense of that as far as growing hay and corn and such.
We fairly have a good growing season. I mean, we do get a lot of cuttings if we get moisture. We non-irrigate, but we do corn for corn silage, no grain corn, just corn silage. We do a lot of dry hay, the later cuttings to feed the heifers and that. But for the most part, we get on. It varies. Every year it varies. Last year was one of the earliest, and this year, looking with the rain, it's going to be maybe a little later.
So when were you guys chopping hay last year? You said it was kind of early for y'all.
Yeah, last year we were cutting grass silage like the first part of April, like the 5th or so, which is very early for us.
That's crazy. I'll say here in the Midwest, I tend to think that like last week or so in May, that May 20th is maybe a little more, like, it's crazy the difference in areas. So tell me, you said you're out in Washington, you're kind of facing some urban sprawl from your local community and such. Tell me a little bit about what are some of your favorite parts about farming in the area that you do?
The favorite part of farming here is you wake up in the morning in the summer, there's always a beautiful view. The biggest struggle is traffic with the urban sprawl and land being bought up that's close to our town and just keeps acclimating, or what's the word I'm looking for, coming out this way.
Mm-hmm.
Urban sprawl is literally coming closer to our farm every year.
Sure. Tell me a little bit about the barn that you guys, cows are housed in. You were telling me about that, and I was kind of fascinated because I think it's a bit different than what a lot of our Midwest farmers are working with.
Oh, yeah. Our barns they're called the T-barn, which is like a 412 pitch, and it's loop stalls, free stalls. They're 48-inch space facing head to head with open open alleys. The only alleys that are covered, the main alley, which is the feed area, but our barn is 240 foot long, with each stalls being free stalls, T-stall barns, and with 4 scrape alleys. We're actually 5 scrape alleys for the dry cow pen, but everything contours right to the back of the parlor and the holding pen with the double 9 herringbone in it.
Nice. And so then you said there's walls on just one side of the barn. There's a roof and then walls on one side then?
One side on the east facing, there's one side just to keep the wind out.
Wow, that's incredible. And then you said tell me a little bit about the bedding you guys use.
We used composted separated manure from a methane digester. It's across the street from us, less than half a mile away, that we pump to. And after it goes through the digester, and then it presses out, and we roll it, and then bed our stalls with it, and then put a light layer of clean kiln dried sawdust in it.
I love it. Awesome. Anything else you'd like to share?
Nope, I gotta go feed cows right now. So it was nice talking to you.
Read more about Troy Wallen's farm under the headline Dairying in the Shadow of Mount Rainier on dairystar.com. Finally, we ring in New Year in classic Dairy Star style with the cheese drop. Monroe, Wisconsin, home of the country's only cheese factory that produces Limburger cheese, embraces their heritage on New Year's Eve. Main Street Monroe worked with Chalet Cheese Cooperative to find a truly unique way to ring in the new year.
We're the only Limburger manufacturer in the United States. And that's a cheese that had has a lot of history, a lot of activity, in the middle, 1950s, 1960s, even before that. But over the years, that volume has declined. Originally, Limburger was brought over as a recipe, and a lot of the like the German immigrants and the Swiss immigrants, they were familiar with Limburger. They really enjoyed the flavor and the robust flavor that it has, and it was something that they could eat that was inexpensive and would give them the protein that that they would need, because at that time meat was expensive and they didn't have a lot of money, and so this was a good source of protein for them. Limburger originally got started by Trappist monks over in a region in what is now Belgium, but the region was Limburg, and that's where the name came from. Limburger is from that location. Now, how that relates to Chalet cheese, in 1885, in this area, farmers came together, and they became a cooperative. And what they did was they hired a cheesemaker to take their milk and make cheese out of it. And at that time, there was a lot of cheesemakers that did Limburger here. So it was a Swiss cheesemaker, and there's a lot of Swiss heritage in this area. They're well known for their cheesemaking skills. And this factory was making Limburger from 1885 until now. So it's been around for a long time. It's always been a dairy cooperative, and that's sort of our niche, I guess. It's not our biggest volume of cheese. Primarily, we are a Swiss and baby Swiss manufacturer. We do other cheeses as well, but the Limburger has always been something that we've done, and we think we do it pretty well. And so we're the last factory standing, I guess, making Limburger.
So, as you mentioned, Limburger isn't your highest volume, but it's certainly still just as valuable. Do you think some of your part is to educate folks about Limburger cheese? Do you think part of your role, and does this event help continue to educate folks about Limburger cheese?
Absolutely. I think that's important. We're a small factory, so we don't have a marketing staff. We don't have a sales staff. So a little bit of opportunities to share the story of Limburger, I think, is important to keep that cheese alive. And you're calling me, and the cheese drop, all of those things just help with that product. we're kind of an ambassador, I guess, of that cheese.
Take me back to the history of this event. This is in the third year, I hear, in the making. Tell me about, how you were maybe brought in that first year, if you were, what that conversation looks like as you can recall.
Certainly. So the group that's known as Main Street Monroe, it's a group that is trying to promote businesses and the development of Monroe's business sector. And they came to me and asked if it would be okay if they used Limburger as a drop for this event. And I said, yeah, that'd be great, certainly. But in my mind, I'm thinking, how are we going to make a cheese that's so big that they could drop it from the sky down? And I was like, my mind was thinking Limburger cheese, not a replica of Limburger. So I was just really fascinated on how are we going to do this? And then through the discussion, it was, they said, no, it's going to be a replica of a piece of Limburger, that they would mock up. It's like, oh, okay, that was kind of embarrassing somewhat to me, as I was thinking it would be this big block of cheese. But anyway, so then I worked with them, and we gave the group from Main Street Monroe, we gave them like a print of what our label would look like, so they knew how to mock it up on the the side of the cheese, and we gave them dimensions so it would be dimensionally accurate. Then the next step with that was to figure out who was going to make that, and I suggested they get a hold of the Monroe High School with their their shop or their woodworking class, and they could build that replica. And that's what they did, and I think they did a fantastic job with it. They put lights around it, and it looks really good. They did a fantastic job.
Read more about the history of the Limburger cheese drop on dairystar.com under the headline Starting the Year with Cheese. And we'd like to thank today's sponsor, DRMS. DRMS is excited to launch the Fresh Cow Index, a new metric within the Herd HQ platform. FCI combines 25 cow-level variables from DHI test day data and CDCB genetic evaluations into one score to evaluate transition cow performance.
Learn more at drms.org/herd-HQ/what-is-herd-HQ. Herd HQ. See what's happening in your herd. Find more at that website at drms.org/herd-HQ/what-is-herd-HQ, or find it in our description. Well, there are so many more stories in the latest issue of the Dairy Star. This issue's Our Side of the Fence centers on a winter calf care. And let me tell you, it's been a crazy past few weeks in the winter in Wisconsin and in the Midwest. A tricky topic, truly, at this time of the year, as you hope to continue to set calves and your herds up for success.
We also have an article about this year's FFA American Star, Nevin Erbsen. Erbsen won the American Star Award for Agriculture Placement. Erbsen's currently a junior at Iowa State who works 4 jobs, 2 at farms in his home state of Illinois, where he learned about automated milking processes at Gunderson Dairy Farm, in addition to working at his home farm, milking in a 50-cow tie stall barn. Read more about his award-winning supervised agriculture experience with the headline, Erbsen Becomes an FFA American Star.
Another story from our neighbors to the north. Danielle Nauman spoke with a couple of farmers in the Fraser Valley in British Columbia. Fraser Valley got 6 inches of rain in a 24-hour time period, December 9th and 10th, an eerily similar situation to what happened to the same valley in 2021. Read about their battle with flooding under the headline, A Bad Case of Deja Vu on dairystar.com.
One more story today takes us from the farm to the ice rink. Adam Meyer was given a pair of ice skates at 15 years old and has turned into a way for the farmer to find time to get off the farm. Meyer has been playing in a men's hockey league since 2003, as he talks about how hockey has helped him find balance in life and farming. Read that story at dairystar.com with the headline Fun on Ice. Find more stories in next week's Dairy Star newspaper. Then come back to the Dairy Delivery on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts to hear more of those stories. Rate and subscribe. If you or someone you know is interested in being featured in the Dairy Star or on Dairy Delivery, reach out to us at dairydelivery@dairystar.com so we can continue sharing all dairy all the time.